Okay, welcome to the October 30th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We were a little late in starting because we had a personnel issue to deal with in non-public, and it ran over a little bit from what we had planned. So at this time, I'm going to make a slight rearrangement of the agenda because Gary Fitzgerald's here to discuss a issue of moving some rocks from a stone wall, and it should be very brief. So rather than have him wait through several other presentations, I'm going to move to that first. So stone wall removal for driveway access on Peacock Hill Road, Gary Fitzgerald.
Hi, I'm Gary Fitzgerald. Yes, I need to remove some rocks on Peacock Hill Road for a driveway entrance.
Okay, and you have approximately how much? Usually it's like 30 feet.
It's 30 feet with the radius.
And what would you do with the stones that you take out?
We're going to put them right back inside the property.
Okay. And this has been before the planning board, and the planning board recommended it to the Board of Selectmen. So anybody have any questions of Gary?
Is this that field right at the top? Right by 149? Just a lot, I just don't...
Yeah, it's a lot of,
Yep, okay.
on the corner.
Yep, that's where I was thinking it was. Yep.
John or
Okay.
Jan, any questions? Okay, I move that we approve the removal of 30 feet of stone wall on Peacock Hill Road, property of Gary Fitzgerald.
I'll second it.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Good to go.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
See you later.
Okay, Beth. 2018 budget presentations, and here we go. We'll be finished sometime in February.
And it starts.
Okay, there's two that's going to be going this evening. The preliminary proposed payroll budgets, we'll begin with those, because a lot of these are going to be included in the
Thank
small
you.
budget presentation in a minute. Thank you. This is the entire town.
Oh, it's the entire town. Ah. It's the entire town.
Okay, so the first section is going to be the town officer salaries. It includes the selectmen and the treasurer. There is no change for 2018. There is going to be a change in the election wages. Oh, did you want to propose something? I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
I didn't get a raise? Nuts.
I moved right on over that quickly. For 2018, we have 3 elections. So there's going to be an increase in the wages for the elections. You also see when it comes to the small budget, there's an increase in that budget overall. Tax collector, everything related for the payroll was is related to the raise for the town vote in March. So that includes the wages, payroll taxes, the health insurance, and the New Hampshire retirement system. You'll see throughout all the small budgets increase because it's a full year at that increased rate. Assessing, same thing. It's the raise per the town vote, payroll taxes, and New Hampshire retirement system. Same thing with the finance administrator's budget, the raises, payroll taxes, health insurance, and New Hampshire retirement system, as well as the same for the town clerk. Selectmen's office, there's a small increase in the transcriber wages because we believe that 3 hours a week at 15 hours should be budgeted for a proposed transcriber. She's been in the budget, or he has been in the budget, it's just not full at this time. The administrator was a raise per town vote. Staff longevity, there's an increase because one of the staff members has now been here for 15 years. So she will receive an increase. One time annual. Her wages also increased per town vote. Payroll taxes related, New Hampshire retirement system, and health insurance as well. Land use, same thing, we're trying to get the transcriber wages to 3 hours a week, because there's 3 meetings a month. Right now, I believe it is budgeted for 3 hours a week, but at a lower rate. And I think we're trying to get one person to cover all meetings. The other raises are per town vote, payroll tax, and New Hampshire retirement system. The police department's increases are due to the police chief's contract that was recently awarded, the CBA passing in March, as well as this is a full roster increase.
Just that's important to emphasize, because it's
Full
gonna look
roster.
like more of an increase than it really is because of an agreement with the finance committee last year, because we expected to not have a full complement of officers, so we basically reduced it by 3 months' wages for 2 officers, I think it was, in order to not put it in the
Okay.
budget because we knew we weren't gonna be spending it.
Good.
So this includes that back
It's a
in.
full roster, yep.
Okay.
This is what we're looking at with a full roster with the CBA's agreement. Full-time secretary was a raise per town vote. The part-time secretary, it was proposed last year, that would be his or her full wages, full year wages. With the CBA passing, the education incentive went away because that kind of rolled into the wages a little bit. The health insurance buyouts decreased because more employees are taking the insurance now. The part-time officer wages, that's also full roster part-time officer wages. We have 2 in the roster. Maybe. So with a full roster, that is what the salary limits is. The health insurance went up. Again, more employees are taking the insurance, plus again, it's the full year at that increased rate. Payroll taxes increase, obviously, when the wages increase. And New Hampshire retirement system, that's a full year at the increased rate. It's gonna be a big hit, we knew that was coming. And New Hampshire retirement system, also, because it's a full year at the increased rate. And then the uniform allowance per the CBA increased $2,000 per full roster. Any questions so far? Emergency management, that was raised per town vote, and then I just did the rounding on the payroll tax. Fire department, chief's raises increased was for the town vote. The part-time secretary raise was per the town vote, as well as the call force. The part-time EMT firefighters line increased because that is a full year at the extended hours. That's 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. Wage increase brought the payroll tax increase. Now, questions? If I'm going too fast, just let me know. Okay. All right, so code enforcement, everything there is due to the raise increase at town meeting, plus New Hampshire retirement system and health insurance. No increase that we see in the forest fire department. Highway department, road agent, part-time secretary, those were for the town vote in March. Again, they have more people taking the insurance, so the insurance buyout is lowered. Because more people are taking the insurance, we're not paying them an incentive buyout, so therefore their payroll taxes are being reduced. And then they have a full year at their New Hampshire retirement system new rate. Transfer station, we'd like to increase this just a little bit. Right now, they are doing 18 hours a week and 140 hours, but because the full-timers have vacation accrued, we really need 200 hours coverage while they take their vacation. So we increased it just a little bit to cover the 18 hours a week, which is the 2 part-timers on Saturday, and then 200 hours coverage during the year for the full-timers to take vacation. Overtime was a raise per town vote, as well as the full-time wages. Health insurance, a full year at the increased rate, as well as New Hampshire retirement system, and then payroll taxes go up just a tiny bit as well. Questions on that? Okay, sewer, it's all based on the raise at town vote and the full year at the retirement system. Animal control, it's the, also raised per town vote, as well as the payroll taxes affiliated with that. Health and health, there is no increases or decreases. Welfare, there's no increases or decreases. And Parks and Recs, we are decreasing the transcriber wages just a little bit so that someone can be available 4 hours a month. I believe last year's budget was at 5 hours a month and it wasn't necessary. The wages hourly are proposed to be increased by $500 so that they can secure an experienced older supervisor, which they haven't had in the past. All been kids. And because of that increase, there's a small payroll tax increase. In the library, there was a raise per town vote for the director, and the trustees recently submitted a small raise to him as well. The hourly wages was a raise per town vote in March. And again, the full year, the increased rate for health insurance in New Hampshire retirement system and the payroll tax increase related to that. Conservation, we reduced that to 4 hours a month to be compliant with the other departments. So we decreased it to 4 hours, and those are the payroll taxes affiliated with that. I know that was really quick in a nutshell, but that's the payroll items, and you'll see it together in the small departments and large departments when they are presented to you. But any questions so far on payroll?
Just, can I mention, I think Jan mentioned it at the finance, our guaranteed maximum rate for health insurance is an increase of 0.6. That's our guaranteed maximum rate, which she's figured into here.
Mm-hmm.
The 0.6 is in here. So that's a guarantee it would go up, it could go down, but that's what we're looking at.
That'd be the maximum that it could go up.
0.6.
Compared to what it was last year at,
Mhm.
what,
Yeah.
Yeah.
was it 11?
Okay.
Yeah, the maximum increase was
Right.
11, yep. We don't know the exact until late April, early May,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
after town meeting.
They give
So the
you a
0.6 is in here, like Naomi said. But we're hoping it might go down,
Yes.
and that would be great. Okay. And the other item tonight is gonna be the small budgets. A lot of it's gonna be what we just discussed.
Thank you.
There are a few items in here that have not been confirmed, and I'll let you know when we reach them.
No,
What'd you do on liability?
We went
down.
Do you know the percentage?
You'll see, it's on here.
No.
So I thought we left that one on. Leave it in? Yeah, it's on the fourth page. There's a decrease. Lori's along with the sheet for the insurances. She'll get there when we get to the fourth page.
Okay,
407.
and as finance, I talked to you, we're gonna need some money, some consensus about the finance committee. Because if we have another step or we have another election, we have to be able to send things out to tell the people what they're voting on.
There's not a finance committee department, so I don't know how you want to handle that. We have had that conversation. Finance committee's asking to have some minimal amount for postage to do their own mailer or to do a summer mailer, but it's my understanding that the second bite at the apple's going away.
I wouldn't buy that program yet.
Okay.
So you
Alright,
wanna,
we can go through, but that's.
do you want a new department?
Can we? I don't know. I don't know how you add a department.
I'm not sure what we're talking about. That would be a good start.
Okay.
So why don't we go through this and
Okay. All right.
Well, the first section we just went over because it's all payroll related, town officer salaries. Staying the same as the 2017 approved budget. Elections, as we just went over, the wages are increasing because there's going to be 3 elections in 2018. Affiliated with that would be, the town meeting, food, printing, mileage, office supplies, computer support. No, sorry, way on the wrong line here. Okay, so what else will be increasing because of the elections is gonna be the food, the printing, and the postage. She is reducing her advertising line by $100 because now online advertising via website is applicable. So she doesn't have to pay for advertising in a paper. Posting on the website sufficient. So we have an increase of $6,400 in elections due to having 3 in 2018. The tax collector's budget, most of it is payroll related. She is asking for an increase in $100 in office supplies because it was there, but in 2017 it was reduced. So she'd like to receive it back because, as you can see, she needs the office supplies. And then the Avatar tax collect software support increased by 5%. Or, yeah, 5%.
Just a question not related to the budget, but while we're on it, so I forget it. What's the timeline on the tax bills, you think?
They're in the mail.
We took them over to the post office today.
December 1st, due date.
Yeah.
Whew. Assessing, most of it is due to payroll increases that we discussed earlier. Right now, I just have a placeholder for the contract because you guys have not awarded that contract yet. So I put a placeholder in there of 74,000 just so we can have a bottom line number. Her software also increased by 5%, and she's looking for a small increase in office equipment because she's going to be budget shopping because she is looking for a screen, a printer, a scanner, and possibly a shredder for only $325. She's going to be budget shopping. She also did a decrease of $125 in postage though because it wasn't a reval year. Postage has gone down. Her mailings have gone down. Sorry. So overall, her increase was $871. Legal expenses. That is where you guys will come in this evening.
She filled in last year's amounts, but go one column to your left and you can see how much you've spent so far. So if you want to just leave it, or how do you want to do it? But we can talk about that.
Right.
Yeah, what we've done here in the last couple of years is to leave the amount, understanding that at times it might go over, but based on wishful thinking, I guess. But beyond that, it seems like we do have issues that are being resolved, so that kind of an increase might not be necessary for the coming year.
Right.
And we can discuss it, but
Yep.
you know, my first inclination would be to leave it alone personally.
Okay. All right, the finance administrator's budget. Pencil stuck in here. Most of it is payroll related. Did reduce the telephone to $525 based on actual costs. The dues for NHTFOA went up to $50, and then the contract for the software support increased $343. Any questions so far? Town clerk, most of it again is due to payroll. There was a decrease in the telephone of $500 because the fax machine has been removed from that office, and they're just using the central one located up in Naomi's office. There's also a reduction in postage by $200. So there's a small increase in that department. In the Selectmen's office, again, we discussed the wages. So we can skip right down to line 125. A reduction in the auditor's expense of $3,500 because of the new auditors and a 3-year contract that we just awarded. The telephone had a small increase of $212 because it's averaging about $300 a month for the landline and $76 a month for cell. Internet connection is $126.95 a month, so the actual cost will be $15.24. There's also a small placeholder in website hosting, but it has been $2,000, as you can see, for the past 3 years, so there might be a small increase. Just a placeholder for now, and then the dues increased by $10. So overall, the budget was reduced by $400. Table is the same, there's no changes. Trustees of the trust fund, in case they want to make copies. Land use, most of the changes is payroll related. They would like to increase their meetings and seminars by $100 because they have new members and there's more interest in attending trainings and seminars. And then their dues went up $6. In cemeteries, the only increase is due to the lawn care contract. $1,500 increase for the second year. And as you can see, the insurances collectively went down $35,000. The liability and property, we're now getting rid of one of those bad years and moving forward. So we have a large increase in that, decrease in that. Code enforcement, again, most of it's related to payroll. Small increase in the contract. We are proposing to add a new line to this department. It's for photocopier supplies. She now has that large plan copier scanner in her office. The ink is very expensive, and so, and the paper roll. It doesn't take regular paper. So we're asking for $600 to be included in this department. I just want to let you know that this is a revenue earner for the town. In 4 months, she's already brought in $400 in revenue. People just come in. They're so excited that we have this machine that copies plans. So we're making some revenue on this copier, and they're using it a lot in-house as well. So I asked that that be included in their department. They'd also like an increase to the fuel line based on fuel costs, but I tagged that to review later when we get a cost. And a reduction in the books and updates, because according to Chip, the New Hampshire legislation voted down accepting the new codes. So they will not have to purchase those books in 18. No change in the street lighting. In health, we did reduce a few of their lines just to make actual costs. So we reduced the dues to $35 because that's what the dues are. Has never expended mileage, never requested mileage and reimbursement. I didn't want to zero out the line, but I did reduce it by $25. Office supplies, the only thing that's ever been purchased is business cards. So I reduced that to $50. Along with postage, never really even came close to $100. So reduce that to $50. And with the prevention, as you can see, never expended it, but didn't want to delete it entirely, so reduce that by $100 as well. Over in the welfare, the meetings obviously cost $40, so we should budget for $40. Office supplies, again, I don't see any being spent, so I reduced it from 100 to at least 50. So overall, her budget went down by $40. Parks and Rec, Karen is here to speak if you have any questions. Again, we discussed the payroll earlier. They're looking for a $500 increase in the rubbish removal. They've always gone over the budget allotment of $200. As you can see, they've already spent $2,700 to date. And I believe the receptacles are still out there. In the park repairs, they noted that because of increase in vandalism, there's an increase of repairs. They are reducing their recreation activity by $1,000 to kind of offset the other repairs or increases. Water safety, they'd like to see an increase of $500 due to the number of lifeguard course requirements that are out there. And an increase of $4,000 in park maintenance because it just, the $5,000 does not allow for most needed maintenance. Do you have any questions on this? Because Karen is sitting
Karen's here
here.
for that if you have any questions.
Questions on any of those given lines?
One time,
No,
one time.
no.
Well, I just have one question. The vandalism, is it in any specific area or?
This year, I don't know,
Yeah, you do.
this past soccer season, somebody drove over the soccer field down at Inison. And, right in the middle of soccer season, so we had to have somebody come out and quickly repair the field. And that was just about $600 in repair, that we just don't have in the budget, so we had to pass that on to another program in town, and they covered the expense, but I mean, that's not something that they should have to incur either, we do-
And that's similar to an advocate of your, I mean, we built fields, but we don't take care of them.
I know.
I mean, you can only, it's the same people that you're putting the burden on. It's just the younger generation that has the kids. But we build the facilities as a town, we pay for the lights, the irrigation and everything else, but we can't add any grass seed or we can't do anything else. And I think you guys have always been supportive of increasing, keep the fields of what we have.
And that's part of our, the park maintenance increase is, the board that we have now, we have, kind of implemented a spreadsheet for ourselves on a timeline maintenance sort of, schedule. This year we took care of the tennis court repair. Last year we did the Bolton Field playground, the mulch down there, and that wipes out our budget. So it leaves us no funds to do really anything else. We do have all the baseball, softball fields that we need to resurface. Our timeline would be once every 3 years on a staggering, but then we spend the $1,500 on that. It doesn't leave us any funds to do anything else, any of the structures that we oversee or, like the overseeding at the fields that really needs to get done and stuff like that. So, we feel that, we would be able to do one major project with this increase, plus some of the other smaller maintenance. And we are keeping track of what's going on. We find ourselves pushing off these projects while we take care of these major ones when the smaller ones really need taking care of as well. So that's reasoning for that fairly large increase on our budget.
Thank you.
You've answered the question I was going to ask.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Anybody?
Anybody else? No? All right,
Thank you.
can I go?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, there's in library, all the increases are due to the payroll, and there was a decrease in the operating budget. Patriotic purposes, there's no increase. And conservation, like we discussed in payroll, there's the decrease in the transcriber wages. And then I just increased the dues to $363 because that's what they actually are. Economic development, no change. Ambulance billing service, I did increase that by $800 because right now we're going through a very high collection stage, so that reflects the higher collections. And the debt service is the same except for 2018, there's 2 interest payments on the bond, which you'll see from now on. And there's no changes in the lease payments. So overall, the small budgets had a decrease of 0.1% over 2017's approved budget. Any changes you'd like to see or questions?
I think that everybody will have to sort of
Review it.
study it and review it, and then, as we come back, we may have questions later. But
Okay.
it's kind of hard going through it at this pace that I appreciate.
Okay.
All right.
And at the same time absorbing each line. So I think
Okay.
we need that.
So when
time
you
to
see it
study
at the end all together, that's when you'll make
Very well
changes.
done.
Thank you.
Any questions before I?
Will you run out the door?
Questions?
Nope.
Jan?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you, Beth.
I don't see any department heads here. Well, I
No,
do.
I see it
One.
right there.
Yeah, I see one
Sorry,
right there.
Bob. Sorry, Bob. I looked earlier and didn't look a second time.
I'm gonna leave now. I don't have anything.
Just,
I read your mind.
in your, stuff I gave you, there is a update on the voter site
Oh, yeah.
electrification from the chief, just so you know what's going on. The $25,000 and what was spent so far and what they've done. It's a one-page sheet that he gave me that I wanted you guys to have.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you need to speak to it, it's very self-explanatory, but.
We got the approval for Clough State Park, correct? Didn't we sign that agreement?
I
No.
just read that in the minutes
Yeah.
today, so.
Okay.
You said Clough, I was
I-
thinking
That's
our
a question
report.
for Naomi. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I
Okay.
gotta send it back.
Okay.
There
All
aren't
right.
any new ones where the electric, yeah. There aren't any new voter sites where that they've actually been activated with the,
No, where we're at is all the sites that we had, so there's 7 sites in total, one of which we're not gonna do anything with, that's on Eleanor Way. So we're really talking about 6 sites, 5 of which are ready for the radio vendor to come in and make his connections. The remaining 1 site, which is Clough Park, I believe we just received permission, or it's in process, from last week's meeting. So I sent an email today to figure out when we can start construction, because we'd like to get it done before the end of the year, because that's when our money's kind of attached to that
That's the
fiscal
Clough
year.
you
Clough
talked
Park.
The one that you gave me approval to sign.
you
Last week.
need a pole for that because it won't cost.
Need a
the
pole,
road
and then it needs to go underground from there.
from the pole to the,
But it certainly appears doable before the ground freezes.
Is that gonna chew up a lot of that remaining number, you think? Burying that service?
It's not as expensive as it may seem, because Eversource, they will cross the street and put it on their pole at, as far as I know, no charge, and then it's really just the electrician to go underground from there.
Right.
So the cost is relatively inexpensive. I want to say it's probably twice as much as one of the other sites, which I think were around 2,100 apiece.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably, let's say it's $4 or $5 grand.
Okay.
So we have sufficient funds. It's just a matter of getting it done at this point.
will R&R's work be done as just part of their contract, or will that be
Yep.
an additional?
When we entered into this, they said that they would take care of that all as a part of their contract. It's relatively minor work, and all the existing equipment's going to stay. The solar power and the batteries to give us some backup power for a night like last night where we lost power on some of those sites.
Now, you have the 3 that are at the 2 fire stations plus the Chase Park were already electrical because of what was there, right?
Correct. Yep.
Do those have any solar backup in case we lost power or not?
I do not think any of them do. The South End Fire Station has a generator, which is relatively new. And the East Weare Fire Station, we took a generator donation 5 years ago,
Yeah.
4 years ago. I don't know if you recall that. We had a transfer switch wired into that building so that we could, if we need to, we can go over and manually set the generator up and run that site.
Anybody have other questions on that or anything else? Okay,
Awesome.
thanks,
Thanks.
Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
SEDS project discussion.
You emailed that to us, right?
I did.
This SEDS, which stands for Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, is a combination of work between the Southern New Hampshire Planning and Central New Hampshire Planning. And I'm on the committee is representing the town of Weare. One of the big changes this year in the overall makeup is the city of Manchester was not part of the group. I think it was 3 years ago. So what we're doing is actually an update, and towns can submit projects or project proposals. They're not really a grant application, but if your project proposal is included, then if you want to turn to sources for grant money, particularly federal funds, then this is like gives it a little more credence than if it's not included in this plan. So I wanted to make sure that we have a look at this. The timeline is very tight. My thought is, and again, I was on this 3 years ago, so I saw what some of the projects were from different towns. Weare did not submit projects at that time because there was a certain sentiment on the board that said don't apply for federal funds. So that has somewhat changed, I believe, so that if there's something available out there, and I'm thinking that there's a lot of talk, unfortunately, there's a lot of talk but no action at the federal level for various things, but for money for infrastructure. One of the needs that we have in this town is the rebuilding of River Road. And so when we had the Hazard Mitigation Study Committee to create a new plan and update that, one of the things that we were sure to put in was the need to have a parallel north-south route in town in an emergency or a hazardous situation. And River Road is that, and we're dealing with a bridge, and we're dealing with the need to totally rebuild a good section of that road. This also ties in with economics because, and different areas besides Weare because of the gravel operations on that road, which rely on it for transportation to Deering and Francistown and Weare, and also state of New Hampshire also draws out of there. So there are different things that tie in with economics as well as a hazard mitigation. So I would say that if it's possible to pull that together, that would be a project to look at, to submit to this group. Again, it's not a grant application, it's a project, and then the committee sits down and ranks the projects, and your ranking kind of, again, depends on
Need.
yeah, it depends on need, depends on how it ties in, depends on whether it meets these SEDS goals, and there are, where am I? There are 5 goals, and you have to relate to one or more of the goals. And the goals are maintain regional quality of life as an attractive place for living, working, and recreating. Develop and maintain, strengthen adequate hard and soft infrastructure for business development. Promote the region. Identify support for implementing the SEDS. Streamline local government processes. And create a business-friendly environment or promote business promotion and development. So those are the goals that you have to be looking at and how they apply to whatever you submit. Anyways, I did not want this to just slip by us without taking any action again. And that is just an idea that I have other people who can also submit more than one project. So if somebody has an idea, for a project that would fall into one of these categories. And I don't know if anybody else printed this out, but Naomi emailed it all to us last week. Tight timeline. Because.
Next week.
Yeah,
No, next week, yeah.
It's due
November
by
6th.
Monday. Right.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
Tom, do
yes.
you know who sits on the SEDS committee for this? Who makes the decisions if you put something through?
Well, last year, I volunteered to be on that committee as far as the subcommittee that ranked the,
Right, but who's the group that actually approves it? Who sits on that? If you're on the subcommittee, there has to be a group higher than that that actually says, yeah, this is the project we're okaying for this. Who sits
the
on
way
it?
it works is the larger group, and again, that's, I either volunteered or got volunteered for. The larger group, the committee, there are one or two people from each of the towns that sit on that. We've only had 2 meetings, because this is actually an update. It's not building the SEDS from scratch.
Right.
So the projects are submitted to this larger committee. And then there's a subgroup that sets down and ranks them, and then it goes back to the larger group for approval of the ranking. All right?
And then does it go to the federal government?
No, it doesn't. It's a regional study, and it becomes part of this comprehensive economic development strategy with attached projects that have been submitted by the town. Now, if it would then be our job as a town to say, okay, where is there money available for this infrastructure improvement, and then to submit a grant application separate from this, but in that, we could make reference to 2 things. 1, the ranking in the SEDS strategy. 2, in our case, the necessity of that as a parallel route for our hazardous mitigation plan. So you see, we're trying to pull together these little pieces
Right,
so
but
that
you're gonna need a contact eventually down to Washington.
we're going to need to know what's available and where the grant money may be. And that's, right now, this is very preliminary. It's not an application for a grant. It's an inclusion in this report. And then from there, it's totally back in our ballpark as to whether we do anything with it.
When did this come out? When did you learn of this?
Pardon me?
When did you learn of this?
We actually got this application just a short time, like a week ago.
I think we got it last week, and it said that he was gone this week.
Yeah, so it was actually the week before last we got the application. We've had 2 meetings, as I said, but it's been pretty low key. Last time we met pretty frequently, and we actually met for 2 or 3 years to create the original one.
So this has to be in by Monday?
The
Yeah.
6th.
So somebody's gotta work on this project, on this.
Right.
Put it together.
Yeah, I'll work with, we'll have to get information from the highway department.
But a lot of it was pulled together during the hazard mitigation. We can take that from the draft,
We
that
have that.
information.
And then Benji's pretty good about knowing what it costs to do certain phases of the road. We also, they ask for other funding, estimated project costs, funding partners. Well, we've already done some of that because River Road, we've been putting aside money for the bridge. So that's part of the rebuilding a river road is the replacement of that bridge. And so we're going to have partners there in the sense that we're putting away $105,000 a year as our share of replacing that River Road bridge. Plus we'll have money from the state. So
Could all
again,
come
this
together.
is just all off the top of my head. So, but it seems to me that there's some logic in it as far as funding partners as well. But we don't even have board approval, all we got is me talking. So, I don't know what people's ideas are. Goals are right on this. question is, do we want to submit a project? Does anybody have an idea for a different project? The ones that came in last year had all different things, everything from things that didn't even seem to relate. Hillsborough had a whole list of projects, including the redevelopment of a mill building, which could tie in certainly with economic development. Henniker had the rebuilding of one of the intersections along Route 202. Again, that hasn't been done. I don't know if there was anything beyond that, but that was part of their proposal. I don't have a list in front of me, but there was so much variety.
The letter says the projects can range from traditional infrastructure, water and sewer projects, streets and regional roadways, to broadband internet connections. So it's pretty much wide open, it looks like.
So could, like, we've got a problem with communications in town. We've talked about that. Apparently CIP, I do not understand why they would have a subcommittee on that. It's not their wheelhouse. But we have a problem with communications for both fire, PD, and highway, as I understand it. That would sound like a wonderful thing for you to submit, because that is infrastructure. It's all about the town, and that is majorly important, and we need it badly.
And substantially for the safety of the
Absolutely.
townspeople. Yeah, that's one.
I mean, that ranks
No
above
reason
River
we
Road
can't
because we
have
need them
two.
everywhere.
Right. It's a matter of just, unfortunately, people aren't hearing what was said. But the suggestion was that something relating to communication for fire, police, and highway, and the work that's being done on that, if there's future improvements needed, that might be another project. And, yeah, thank you.
The only money that we get as a town is the money from the taxes that we pay on, people pay on their fuel, right? That's the money coming back that goes into the highway.
Highway
When
block
someone
grant.
buys a gallon of gas or a gallon of diesel fuel, they pay a tax. That tax goes to Concord. Concord gives us a percentage back. But they divide it out among the towns.
Right, the road reconstruction grant from the state comes from the gas tax,
But
right?
there's no other way to bring any other money in when, I mean, River Road is used constantly.
Yeah,
And it's not just regular vehicles, it's heavy equipment, heavy trucks loaded. Is there any other way of,
that's what I'm getting at. I don't know, but if we put that in as a
well, I mean
project,
that, but is there any other way besides that project you're talking about? Is there any other avenues to bring that in? I mean, Tim Redmond used to talk, and I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I remember him when they were doing logging, that he was making the people that were logging put a bond on, so if they damaged any part of the road from using it, that the bond had to cover that.
right, that was,
But they get that money back.
yeah, it's not anything that we keep.
It was usually during mud season only,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
when they restricted the weights. So if you wanted to carry something a little heavier,
Yeah.
then you wanted to bond it, and then your heavy vehicle caused damage, then we had some money to fix it.
It's specific to certain, the bonding is specific to certain conditions and certain areas. For example, when we just approved the go-ahead on some logging for town land, we're concerned about 2 stone culverts. And so we're requiring bonding so that if there's damage to those, it would cover that to be rebuilt. One of the things when Tim was the highway director, he was concerned about entrances onto the roads. And we had, I think, Craig, for example, talking about that, when the heavy-duty trucking was entering onto the roads, they could break down the sides of it. And so bonding that so that it would be. And then we had an issue with Cram Road, was it? Where we brought a logging operation in Francistown, came over Cram Road in Weare, and we were concerned about a bridge there. And so we had that bonded so that if there was damage, that it would be repaired, so that they were related to specifics. Really wasn't a money-making issue, it was a repair in case issue.
But where we have so many heavy pieces of, or so many heavy trucks loaded with gravel and rock and stuff traveling the river road all the time, I mean, I'm sure there's being somewhat damage done to that on a yearly basis, whether it's 5% a year or whatever, I mean, I don't know, but I'm just wondering if there was another way to approach that wear and tear on that road where it's used constantly.
Well, if you're suggesting from private business, I don't think that would, you know, we couldn't be arbitrary.
Correct.
You know, that's the issue. But I'm looking to find some way by using this to, because that's like, what, almost 10 miles long? 8 or 10 miles long, and to totally rebuild, including the reclaim, the base coat and the top coat, is estimated at something like $200,000 a mile.
A mile, yeah.
So we're talking about almost impossible expense to totally rebuild the road. Otherwise, it would take us 5 years and not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So, should we submit a project?
I'd submit them both.
I would too.
Put River Road plus the
Mhm.
radio communication.
Looks like we think.
If we
that.
can come up with that much of a, you know, if we can come up with that in that timeline.
Right.
The timeline is the issue.
Right.
Jack Dearborn's been doing a lot as far as, because of his role as chairman of the CIP, with working with R&R Communication and seeing, you know, what may be needed in the future. But the issue might be that right now there may not be any prediction of what needs to be done that we could put down in dollars and cents, but we can look into it certainly. Any third issues that we could look at as a project?
Not right off the top of my head.
I'll think about it, and
Well, we don't have much time to think about it.
I'm gonna email people here. And,
Maybe ask for a continuation.
yeah, I mean, it's a very short timeline.
Hmm.
We got the application the week before last, and
Less than a month.
yeah, so I don't know if they're so cramped on a
Time.
timeline that they can't extend that deadline. Not
Hmm.
for one town, but for all towns.
Right.
Right.
So I'll check into that, but I'm not saying.
Okay.
So that's what the SEDS was about.
Perfect.
Anything else on that? Purchasing policy discussion. I don't know if you'll have a chance to read through that, but I had a couple of things that to bring to the board's attention, and then if somebody else would rather go first, please. I seem to be hogging the conversation there.
Go ahead.
On page 3 and 4, numbers 1 and 2 at the bottom. Purchases between $1,001 and $2,500 is necessary to get 3 written or verbal quotations. And then if you look at 2, to me they're exactly the same. This is between $2,501 and $5,000. The only difference is that you have to have written quotations, whereas in the first, you could have verbal or written. Does anybody else see anything different between those two?
No.
No.
It just seems like a pretty fine line.
In a lot of times you can reach out and you can't necessarily get
Three written.
three written. I mean, that's a struggle at times.
Personally, I think though that a written quotation should really be done, because then we have something.
Yeah, a lot of
Writing
times we'll
something.
send out,
RFPs.
we'll send out an RFP to a whole list of emails, and because they're busy, they can't bid on it. So the attempt has been made to search out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, but not necessarily can everybody bid back. That's the problem. And if you, I don't have a problem, showing the emails that they went out. A lot of times they'll reply back and say, I'm too busy, thank you for including me, maybe next time. That's at least been a reach out. I agree, written's always better, so,
Then we have something in writing that's,
but we could wait for a long time to get 3 if people are busy, that's all.
Right.
well, how many people do we have? I've never seen the bid list. Is there any way of,
Mary maintains what we call a vendor list.
right?
It's very thick, because a lot of them are doubles. A lot of people want to be put on various different things. She probably maintains it. She would, obviously, in her computer.
Well, I know that there was some talk about increasing it. I have a problem with that too. I really would like to see it stay the same. Because there is a provision in there if there's an emergency or if,
We can override it.
you can always override it, but I still think that department heads and so forth should, advise us of anything over $1,000. That's my opinion.
I think I brought that up because that cap of $1,000, anything over $1,000, you have to get 3 quotes on it. And I was suggesting that we move that because it isn't practical. If you're talking about any kind of a work project, there's not much you can get done for $1,000. So I was thinking in terms of looking at that and bringing it up for discussion. Should that be moved to 2,000 or 2,500 or whatever?
I personally like the numbers the way they are because I think that puts the ball back in our court to be the steeds of the checkbook. I'm that's just my feeling of it. That we need to stay with those numbers, and I understand you can't get much for work said for $1,000. I get it, but if that amount of work is going on, then I think we need to be involved. So I'm perfectly fine with cleaning up some of the language. If there's a language issue between 1 and 2, or some grammar back and forth with the written verbal, but I'd like to keep the numbers the same myself.
And Jan, you concur with that?
I do.
Okay, well, so I'm vote is John. What are your thoughts?
I'm fine either way, but I go along with what Ricky's saying. We've been kind of waving things here a little bit more than what I think I like myself. We need to get those 3 bids out there, and I understand emergency, we can do it, which what we have done. I think we could probably just eliminate number 2.
And just do
Yeah,
1,000.
Just do 1,000 to 5,000.
Well, on, purchases, 1 and B, on the B,
Yeah.
just on page 4, just eliminate number 2.
Yeah.
It's redundant. It's the same
Right.
thing as 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I think that if we have things approved at the town meeting, that the thing for us to do is we have put together projects that we want to see done. best thing to do is to right away get out there and get the bids on those projects instead of waiting and doing one now, one in the middle of the year, or one in the fall, or whatever. Get the bids out there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think we're getting a little off the topic of the actual policy itself.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I think we're
Right.
getting a little off the topic
Yeah,
of it.
we'll be coming
Okay.
back with that tonight.
That, yeah, that's a later topic, but,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So, are we talking about number 1 at the very bottom of page 3?
That is
and
correct.
number 2 at the top of page 4?
Yeah.
Are those
Yeah.
to
Just
combine
take number
those?
the 2 off the top of page 4, just.
But then you'd have to increase 1,001 to 5,000 versus
Correct.
25.
That's correct.
And they are exactly the same,
Right.
except for one says
Written or verbal.
written only, and the other one says written or verbal.
Hmm.
But yet it does say we can waive things if we need to,
Right,
so,
right. No, and that's, I know I've kind of been the stickler of this the last few months of abiding by this, but I feel as it's a policy that was put forth, and I mean, the thing is again, we're trying to, keep tabs on where the budget goes, and I think that's part of our responsibility, so I think it should be followed. And yeah, it may make,
I can't remember us getting verbal only quotes anyways.
no, I can't either.
So,
Yeah. The handicap ramp and out front.
Oh, yeah, we have.
well, it wouldn't take long to,
Jot something down real
Jot
quick.
it down.
Yeah, on notepad.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, we're not looking for formal letterhead on, but, yeah. So I think we should take the verbal out
Right. So
myself, so it'd be 3 written. And again, it doesn't have to be fancy, but 3 written.
just combine the 1 and 2 all into one paragraph and make it written quotations.
Correct. 1,001 to 5,000.
5,000.
Do we have that?
The other thing that I had
have
had
that?
to do with, on page
Where is it?
5,
Right, thank you.
where, number 2, public notice. All bid notices must, let me get back to this. All bid notices must remain posted in at least 2 public places, one of which must be the town office building for a period of not less than 2 weeks, 14 days. Doesn't mention the town website. Later on, when it talks about something else, I don't know, I missed it, it does mention the town website. But I think that the posting for invitations to bid on a project should just as commonly now be posted on the website
Yep.
as they are in the town hall.
Well, I mean, we're updating a policy that's almost 10 years old, and I think the reliance of internet has gotten a lot more. So
that
I think we should add
under
that.
public notice, we should include the website.
Yes, I would agree.
Definitely in the newspaper.
Yes. So that's one of the only 2 areas that I found. Anybody have suggestions for any results in there?
Okay. Purchases in, under B,
Page?
Page.
page 8. Purchases and services made through the state's contractor list, which is available to municipalities to obtain state-obtained prices. Now, I understand, like, this is for WB Mason and those companies who win the bids that for the
Mhm.
state, and the state buys
Yep, same way we
their
did
office
with the
supplies, and we
cruisers
get
and,
the same price.
right.
So is this the one that's used for the gravel?
Well, it can be.
No, it really can't be. Because when I call the state, being on a bid list for the state, and throughout areas on aggregates, what they do is whenever they need a bid, they send it out. And whoever wins that bid, wins the bid. it's not all over the state. We wouldn't get the same price necessarily.
Well, no, because you're not gonna truck something from Colbert to Weare at the same
Obviously,
price.
so this is really kind of not, it's not apples and apples.
As far as what it's saying,
Well,
or what we're acting.
how we're acting on it, because we are getting the state price, like from Irving, for fuel, for, like I said, I use the office supplies.
Right.
You know, we're getting that. But because somebody is on a state bid list, like the aggregate, I talked to Jeff Healy over at the state, and he said it's just, you can have a number of bidders. They could have 50 to 100 bidders on the state bid list for this, and not all of them win just one blanket, like which is done under the office supplies. It's a blanket bid that covers the state. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think what we've got here again, it's like,
It's like not, it's apples and bananas.
it's like the last issue that we said we'd come back to, which I've already forgotten, but that really wouldn't be a change in the policy, it'd be our interpretation of it.
Exactly.
You know, whether it applies to that or not, and I think that's, I understand what you're saying. It's different if the whole state police are buying cars and it's $27,950 a piece, and we can get them at that price because if we go out on our own, they're gonna cost more. So you're saying that applies there, but not necessarily for something else, and you're using the example of the crushed stone or gravel. Okay, so that's not necessarily a change in this purchasing policy we're looking at, but I think that we have to have a discussion about how we're applying it. That's because it's there, and when we want to take advantage of it,
Yes, we do.
what we have to do is decide which is appropriate for this board and which isn't. And, you know, we can, you know, I'm not trying to disagree with you, all I'm
No, I
doing is saying
understand. I
that
understand.
for the purchasing
I'm
policy.
just trying to make
that's
a
probably-
point that there's
Yeah.
two different ways of interpreting this. And that one is one. And there probably are others. I just know that it's specifically on aggregates, because that was what I was asking for.
But it says a contractor list, not necessarily a bid list.
A vendor list.
The contractor list is available to municipalities.
Right, that's not a bid list.
It's
That's
not
a
a bid list, it's
contractor
just a
list as to who
contractor
can do the
list.
job.
Right, under the state, under the state.
It's nothing to do with bids.
Right.
But it does, because the reason we've been going to WB Mason is to get the state price, and that was brought up to my attention.
Yeah, but not necessarily do we have to, because and I'm just
Oh, no,
gonna
no,
say.
no, no.
Because
you can buy
WB
from
Mason,
Staples,
if you can
right.
buy from Staples, you can buy from Amazon,
Right.
you don't have to go to WB Mason and pay $4 more.
Okay,
You can shop,
right.
and I think it's on the state list, so, I mean, that's typically where we've always gone for cars and other things. But it doesn't take away from the ability to shop.
No,
But I think
No.
to solve the issue that you're expressing concerns about would be to, before we move into the next construction system,
Yes.
have that discussion with the DPW director as far as how we want to go about purchasing materials.
Well, specifically because another vendor in town has brought to our attention that he was on the contractor list and wasn't.
well,
asked.
now, and we're getting off topic, but the only thing that was presented was the fact that the material met grade.
Well, you get a sieve test or whatever.
But the material met grade, not that he was on the list, but the
Well,
material met grade.
Yeah, one of the things that.
So, which is across the board.
And it really doesn't solve the issue that you're talking about, Jen, but that Benji, DPW director, doesn't want to change materials all as part of the same project. In other words, you're doing River Road, you don't want to use materials from one place for part of it, another place for another. So, you know, that doesn't disagree with what you're saying as far as the bidding process, but it's just that you want the consistency of materials for the whole project. And I think that was one of the things that he pointed out.
Oh, right.
How it developed initially, I'm not sure of. But it's something that we should look at the beginning of the season to see.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on the,
And I think if you're gonna go, I mean, odds the more.
anything else in this policy that people want to look at and changes?
No.
So the only two, that combination of 1 and 2 on pages 3 and 4,
Mhm.
make it all into one paragraph, and then just include website in
Page
the
5.
public notice
Mhm.
postings. And then those would be their only changes, and then we'd re-adopt it afterwards. Okay.
I got from 10, 11, 12. Section 13, the last 2 pages. Bottom of the page 8, page 9. Yeah. That value seems a little bit small to me. Especially with the cost of everything today. That number seems a little small. The $100. The section is section 13, disposal of surplus property. And it's just the different ways that the department head and the board of selectmen recommend for disposing of surplus equipment. And right now the current value is $100. You know,
We can't go too high, because you only get $300 per car.
I understand that. No, I totally get. Well, yeah, but you don't know what you're gonna get for a car. When you send it to state surplus or an auction, you don't know what's gonna be. No, I get it. I do. I'd almost like to double that number. I'd almost like to double that number to 200.
So any property which is considered to be surplus and valued at over $200 must be presented to the Board of Selectmen by
Right.
the department head with a recommended method of disposition for approval.
I mean, you know, if we had a surplus wheelbarrow, I mean, wheelbarrows are more than $100 now. You know, I don't really want to be talking about what we're going to do with a wheelbarrow. I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I think that's a little bit, you know.
Does it relate to local politics?
Well, I don't know. Maybe we can carry around the ballots with it. I don't know. But
I think you need a shovel to do that.
yeah. Well, now we've gone way over the $100. All right. So I think we ought to raise that to 200. That's all. It's, like I said, because everything is so expensive today.
Other opinions on that?
I agree. Yeah.
Everything's over $100 now. It seems. Can't even go to the fuel stop and get $100 of fuel. So
Any more change? Anything else? Anything,
So then you're gonna change page 9
to 200 as well.
to 200 as well,
Yep.
because it says any item of less than.
All set?
I don't have a wheelbarrow.
Yeah, you all set?
I like to borrow the shovel.
Do we need to move to amend it?
Sure, why don't we do it? Move to make the recommended changes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, there was something else, and I already forgot, we were gonna come back to for discussion. Do you remember what it was, Rick?
Written,
It was the what?
written clause?
No?
No, it was Jan mentioned it.
No, that was, hmm?
Getting money for the finance committee.
That was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was for the budget.
What did we talk about? Oh, the
Something related to this.
yeah, something related to the purchasing policy. part of it. Well, Jan brought it up.
The timing of the,
You brought it up.
yeah, sending out, bids, like right after town meeting.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what I was gonna say on that. Whenever possible, we get estimates before even, and I know that's difficult, but our problem is we pass something in the middle of March, and by the time we get the our act together, it's April, and then especially improved economy, everybody's busy. And you can't get anything done.
And therefore, that's why we signed that agreement for the backhoe. Because of this exact instance right here, of the unknown going past the town meeting vote. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
But it's like, talking construction, we had a problem finding people to do the simplest jobs because they're all busy.
Mm-hmm.
And Naomi had to go begging to get somebody when we went through Chip, asked who reliable contractors were in town, and then she had to call and ask them to put in a quote on those town hall doors, because nobody was coming forward.
But a lot of companies in business, it was in another town that I lived in, we rebuilt a transfer station, and all companies were buying a truck, and we had building construction. We had it bid out, and they said they would hold their quotes, make them good to clear for town meeting, and they would hold them if it passed.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting, is that, things like some of these projects on the town hall, if we could get quotes on them in advance, so that if the article passed, then you're good to go. And actually, we're kind of in that situation with the bell tower over there.
But you only got one quote.
Right, we only got
Well,
one.
we've got two, actually. We had one from earlier when, I don't know if it still holds or not, but
From 2 years ago?
yeah.
Did we get something? I don't remember.
But we can
But
look
there
at-
again, you're taking one quote and you're gonna give it to somebody. Is that what you're talking about?
Not necessarily. I'm saying that if we need 3 quotes, maybe we could look into now getting the other one or the other 2, whatever we need, so that in March we can pick make a decision, whether it's the lowest one or whether it's the most reputable one.
Well, it's also a good thing, because then the voters know what they're buying.
We're kind of leaking over here into public comment, so I think we're gonna have to keep this through the
Open
board.
forum.
No offense, but
I think, I agree, but I think if you term it right on the RFP, in the writing, to say, basically put it all out there. We're looking for an RFP for the project. We're looking for, a dollar, basically a dollar value to put onto the, onto the warrant article, and somehow word it to say basically that if you bid, if you give us a number or a bid number, that as soon as the town meeting passes, you will be contacted as a potential vendor for this job opportunity. Because you don't want to word it so much to say that basically give us a number and you get the job, but let them know, because I just don't want them to say, yeah, we'll give you a number, here it is astronomical, and we don't want the work, and you're not going to give it to us anyways, you already got somebody else in mind type thing. On the receiving end of that at the business level.
But then again, you're gonna be sending it out to more than one anyway, so,
Right.
they know it's a proposal.
Right, but you're not telling them they have the job.
Right, but the bid will be awarded
Right.
after the fact?
Yes.
Okay.
And that they would probably
But
be
then
called.
they
If the
won't hold
vote
their
is approved.
time, if that's,
Right, they'll fill
Correct.
spots.
They'll,
If you're gonna wait till town meeting, they're gonna
I think,
take what's
but I
guaranteed
think,
work.
unfortunately that's just any town. I don't think that's just us.
Oh, that's a municipal.
Yeah, it's a municipal world.
yeah.
But
And-
you are ready to go as of March 15th,
Right.
rather than starting the process March 15th.
Right, you have an intent the day after the
As long
meeting.
as the cost hasn't gone up.
We can
goes
say
Substantially
that
right.
we'll make a
Down, but-
decision,
Right.
and let you know by this date.
Right, exactly. We have the intention, we have the RFP written, if we get a yay or nay, we'll have it awarded by the end of the month, or whatever.
Okay, that was the other thing I just wanted to discuss. Minutes. Anybody have anything on page 1?
I did text I haven't looked at them yet.
Page 2? I didn't have anything until page 3, so
I had 2 on page 3.
probably the same ones. Go ahead.
The, second paragraph down, so it starts off with Chairman Cole. Third sentence down,
Mm-hmm.
the so-called A meaning,
Yep.
just take the word A out.
Yep.
And
Got
then the
that.
same sentence, he is trying, working.
Take trying
Take
out.
trying out.
Great minds think alike.
Oh, that's all I had on the whole thing.
Okay, if you go down to where it says RFP, I think that prepare a spreadsheet in the third line rather than repair a spreadsheet.
Yeah, probably prepare, yeah.
And then in the next paragraph, third line down, there was a caution, and I just put indicating, and then cross out the word that, indicating not to make the committee too big. I guess it could go either way. And then at the end of that same sentence, just cross off the word to when the meetings are attended.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only changes I had on any of the minutes.
Move to approve the October 23rd minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mm-hmm.
Manifest. I move to order the treasurer to sign payroll checks and accounts payable checks dated November 2nd, 2017. Is included in the following manifest. Payroll manifest, $50,098.66. Fire department monthly payroll manifest of $3,548.98. And an accounts payable manifest of $58,383.74 for a total of $112,031.38. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Administrative reports.
I don't know that, I'm not gonna ask you to act upon, but I did put in front of you tonight the sugar and spice lease. I did get information back from Sugar and Spice. They would like to renew the lease with the town. The staff and the parents at Sugar and Spice greatly appreciate the use of the building and would like to maintain occupancy for another 3 years. They've attached their insurance and their state license. So I have both of them, but if you want, I'm not asking you to do it tonight. I filled in next Monday's date, all for you to look at. If there's something you want to change, we can talk about it next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any thoughts on that tonight? So we'll be ready to go next Monday as far as making any change?
Still want to do
I
3
just-
years? You still want to do the same price? What's your thoughts?
Oh, we're capped at 3 years, right? Is
I
that-
don't know, last year, I found an old one, last year you guys talked about 5, but it settled on 3.
I think that we found there was some law that restricted us to
I
3,
believe that's true.
and that's why we stayed with 3.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it on hold, or anybody have any suggestions so that we can be ready to go next week, or?
Well, I think the only other thing that was brought up was possibly changing the fee. The fee.
Right, there was a suggestion one night at
Yeah.
public comment is to zero the fee out. It's $1,500 a year that they pay.
I don't like that idea. I'll
No, I
be,
just was bringing it up because
Right,
it
no,
had
no,
been brought
no.
forth, and it just to think about that, whatever you want to decide.
right.
Any ideas, change or leave it alone?
I kinda like to keep the fee as it is,
Okay,
minimal.
Right, I just don't want to drop it to 0 and set a precedent, that's all. for other, for-profit companies.
Okay,
So,
then, why don't we just bring it in as is for next week and sign it?
If something crops up, just shoot me an email, please. I got prices today for fuel for the upcoming heating season.
yeah.
The old one runs out tomorrow, so. What I was quoted for number 2 fuel, this is fixed now through the end of, this is through for November 1st through October 31st again. I had 2, Dead River won't do a fixed price. So I had Rhymes and Irving, all 3 were contacted. Rhymes gave me a price of $2.16 for number 2 and $1.68 for propane. We used 10,400 gallons of propane and 2,600 gallons of number 2. So that brought the total townwide for $23,088. Irving offered us 2.246 number 2 and 1.652 for propane. That totaled $23,020.40. It was a $68 difference between the two of them.
Not bad.
At 23,020?
$23,020.40 is the difference
Wow.
between the two, based on the 10,400 of propane and 2,600 of number 2.
Now, we've used Irving,
Right along.
and we've had good service with them.
We have this year better than most, only because I get after them, because they always let us run out the first time.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
This year we didn't run out.
Perfect. Okay.
And I was reminded when we bid last year that I won't run out.
Good.
Last year you paid $1.94.9 for propane and $2.08 number 2. So your propane went down, but your propane's your bigger user because you have 10,400 gallons of propane that you use. There's only a couple buildings that still have number 2 left. This is one of them. So the price fluctuates every day.
Yes, it does.
So it can go up tomorrow, whatever you guys want to do. But thinking for $68 or $67.60, you might want to stick with Irving, because you're gonna have to go through a inspection with Rhymes.
Change out all the tanks?
And I'm gonna tell you too that Rhymes would only do it from November 1st to May 30th of 2018, and we got November 1st to October 31st with Irving.
So we want to top things off during the summer.
We top things off before the price changes, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, but if you go at Rhymes, which I don't have a preference of either, but if you go to Rhymes and when the summer hits, if things are high, and you pay the fluctuating price until you put it back out to bid. So I'm just tossing out there for Irving for the whole $67.60.
Make a motion that we accept Irving as our fuel provider?
Number 2 in the LP.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. You want me to give the dollar amount?
You can, or I can include it.
Okay. I've got it, but you can
Okay, go
include
ahead.
it, just include it.
Is there a second?
Ooh.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Oh, sorry. Did you have an eye?
I did, yes.
201.
3 ayes and a no.
3 ayes and an abstain. One more larger thing I think we have to talk about, and I do have, before we get to the other, is I have the East Shore Drive plan.
Yeah,
It's
wait.
been surveyed.
You.
You guys can just follow along with me once I send them down, because I've looked at it several times. You remember when you open up your plan, you need one more?
We need one more. Thank you.
Sure. I guess I'll preface it by saying that I believe once you guys look at this, one of these plans should go to the attorney representing the resident. The other one should go to town council. As you open it up, you're gonna see this dotted line starting at the word drive and going down to your left. That's the actual dirt part of the road, okay? the dark line that's a little bit wider is actually what we own. You're gonna see the iron pins were found in the front pieces. And you're also gonna see that in front of a few houses, there's a nice paved apron and a retaining wall and some other things. So, follow me down to 10466 and 10465 was where the dispute arose between the two. There's a gravel drive and then there's an existing stone retaining wall. If you look at that, that actually, there are some stones out into the roadway from the pin that do impair the driveway access. That driveway access evidently has been around since the 50s or 60s, I was told, was improved this year, but regardless, there are stones that are out into the road. So, in this new curve back up towards East Drive, that new curve that is rounded prior to the paved area has now become cement stone wall. So it's not just loose stones, it's all cemented in. So I guess...
Are you talking about, you're right under the word drive?
Right under the word drive, that's paved. And
And
you
then-
come down to the paved area, there's a hook.
Okay.
Just by the word that says screw found in pavement.
Yep.
There's a hook there, just above it. That hook is all cement wall now. It's been cemented, the stone wall's been cemented together. Which, again, that's on our right of way. So you start down a path of, there's a lot of things that are in our right of way.
Yeah, I was looking at up the next lot.
So, how do you want to proceed? I guess the fair way, you can finish down the hill and do all of it. At the same time, you're probably gonna just be amazed at what you find down below that sits in the right of way. But that's gonna cost you some money. I also, this reason that we did this was to find the lines and to talk about the access to the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm looking for is, I mean, it's gonna be costly to do it all, but what would the insurance company think if somebody runs into that cemented stone wall
Yes.
in the town, even though it's town-owned, not maintained road? Still our road.
Right.
At the same time, when you ask that to be moved, what about the guy down here that we didn't get to? You
Or-
know,
or the
only
ne-
discrimination.
Or the other one that we see
Across
right here across from the V of Drive.
Or across from east, there's an existing retaining wall there that's been along there too. So there's a lot of things that encroach in our right of way, and how would you like to proceed? I will gladly hand it off to Attorney Drescher now that you have a signed, surveyed lots.
Hmm.
Now, this is not the whole road that we're looking at.
No,
here.
we
No.
only asked to do from there down to here, if you
Mhm.
remember right.
Mhm.
Correct.
That's all he did.
Well,
I think first and foremost, I guess this is what brought us to this point here is the stones that don't allow someone to get in the driveway.
Right.
Okay,
and-
where on this map is the driveway dispute?
Under the O.
Under the O and
Sure.
Shore?
Yes.
Yeah, under the O and Shore, there's a gravel driveway right there. And in front of that driveway, there are a pile of stones.
Well, I think it's pretty
It doesn't
self-explanatory then.
show the stones.
I'm not sure why they didn't, I could gladly ask, but, it's been verified by other sources as well as the owner of 65 that the stones are out there.
So is it continuation of this wall that
Yeah,
hooks
From
out?
it is a
66.
curve,
But it
that's
just
a-
doesn't show on here.
correct.
Then, as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be moved.
But I think there needs to be a time frame.
Yeah.
How you wanna handle the paved area and the other things, I think is a larger question.
Oh, it is a larger question, much larger question.
But it's larger money too to do the rest of it.
Oh, yes.
I don't know how much.
About 3/4 of a mile,
The road is.
Mhm.
The whole thing?
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you tell these three people that they gotta do that, you're
Be
gonna-
prepared.
We're gonna get a bunch of grief, so
Well, I
we're
think
gonna have to do the whole, because I can tell you down here to the left, there's a
a lot.
lawn that's probably 15, 20 feet in our right of way.
I mean, I think regardless of what we do, honestly, with this decision right here, I think it's gonna stir a bee's nest down there.
Oh, absolutely.
Either party, it's gonna stir a bee's nest. And I think we're gonna get bombarded regardless of what we do. But
We should show the stones here, I mean, on the map, because
Well, I don't know
The
what
very-
day they went out.
the 20th.
They're there now. I don't know what day they actually did the,
I mean, it's a very pile of rocks that we're concerned about that they don't
Yeah.
show on the.
and you can find the iron pipe.
Mhm.
It's right there. It's got orange on it. I mean, I can gladly,
But the iron pipe is the boundary marker, correct?
absolutely.
And that coincides with the actual right-of-way for the town,
Mhm.
so that's okay.
Yep.
So as we look at it, it's everything to the left. under the
65.
row,
On to 65.
Where the dotted lines show the gravel coming in, and there are stones there that aren't shown.
Correct.
That go to the left, as we look at the map, to the left of the pin.
Yes, it impedes the access.
Yeah. That's, to me, seems pretty clear cut. If it goes to the left of the pin,
Then
it's
that's
on the
what we
other
would-
person's
Yeah.
property.
Right.
Well, it's our property. Because it curves out into the road. Curves out not to have access.
Right, but if there's a pin out there, it's pretty.
Oh, so it's like there's a hook on that end, like there is on the other end of this wall?
I guess I would have to just ask Chip to go and take pictures, but I was told that what's on the ground is out into the partial driveway, about 6 feet.
Mhm.
So you can address it by the survey and here it is amongst the two, that's fine, but you also are now being shown that you've got retaining walls and paved people's parking in what's ours.
And that's what we have to go to the attorney for, but do you recommend that we go to the attorney before taking any action on that piece of wall that's setting out in the other person's property? In front of the other person's property, or?
I guess what I would like to do is, I could probably take a field trip, but, I could have Chip go out with me and see it, and then I think a time frame needs to be given to move it, because it's not something that we're moving, because it's not ours.
Right.
But I think a letter needs to be written to the owner to remove them immediately within 10 days.
Right.
I mean, the iron pipe is there, showing the boundary
It's
marker.
got an orange thing.
And
To me, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
If there's an orange pin out there.
Certainly over,
But
And at the same time, I think we'll share a copy with his attorney as well as ours and see what we go from there. But I think the immediate is the block of the driveway, which
Right.
we could verify and then a letter could be written.
Yep, I would agree. Now, in this situation of the road, do we have any? I mean, where it's owned but not maintained, do we have any issues like this elsewhere in town of this kind of infringement on a heavily traveled non-town maintained road of the right of way?
I don't know, I'd have to,
All right, just I'm thinking off the top of my head. I'm running them through my head and I can't really think of any.
yeah, actually, you've got another one up on the other side of the lake.
Okay.
It's towards Waterman in that way.
Okay.
But I think, I mean, to what we wanted to do, we found.
Right, we've got our answer. Right, for
And
what
what
we needed.
happens with the rest, I guess I'd let town council give us the.
I would agree. And then who's
So
done?
we'll verify the rocks beyond the pin.
Yep.
And then a letter will go out with,
Yep.
you want a week or 10 days? How do you want to do it?
10 days, I'd say.
10 days?
you want to keep these?
I mean, I've got a couple here. I mean, I think one's gonna go to town council, one will go to his attorney, and I think you guys can have them.
I'll keep it. Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say it might come up in future reference.
Alright, to my report, 'cause that's all I have to offer you. The government buildings, team engineer was out on Tuesday. She climbed up through the attic, conducted the inspection, and she's going to be sending us a report, which I don't have as of today. And I think Sherry and I spoke last week in regards to the Gordon Brown buildings and the Clinton Grove underpinning. Is that what you're here for? Do you want to talk about that or no?
I can, but I really don't have anything to
Okay.
update you really on.
Yeah, at the time we had talked, she's been waiting to reach back from, or someone to reach back to her on both of those projects. Both the Gordon Brown building for the roof and then the underpinning at Clinton Grove. And when we spoke last Wednesday, she hadn't scheduled to meet with either one yet, but she was working on it, so that's where we are at that.
Works for me.
Joint loss management, I guess I'll just hop down, the rest hasn't really changed, but joint loss management, I have come back, right now, I've got 3 department heads, 2 employees, and I haven't heard back from the library yet, so I've almost got my 3 and 3, which I will firm up, and we'll call a meeting together, and then a chair would be
Appointed.
and then they'd make quarterly meetings after that, so we get that back up and going. But I really went out to the department heads and offered who wanted to volunteer. I didn't go through the secret ballot of voting in somebody. We got employees that were gracious enough to volunteer to do it. And the police departments offered 2 in case one couldn't come, so I wouldn't have both of them here, but if one couldn't come, the other one could as an employee. And at the moment, I have Benji, Chip, and Bob Zena as the department heads, and I have Matt McLean, and then I have Brandon and Ryan, and Mike and I couldn't connect today, but he was going to supply me with somebody. I'm going to sit in, and so will Phil St. Cyr, and that'll get us started if we want to expand a little bit more to 4, because it really, I'll be sitting here, but nobody from this building. But I got your 3 larger safety committee, and I wanted Chip involved, so we've accomplished it, but I also want to bring in the library, because the library was very helpful when Chris was around.
Right.
And all of that, so Mike will probably get back to me in the morning, but it looks like by next Monday, we'll have a meeting set, a date set, and we'll have people ready to go.
Awesome.
We did, as you see in the smaller budgets, you didn't see any of ours because I was waiting on fuel and waiting on some other things. So with that being said, is there any thought of, did somebody have a idea of what you wanted for a custodian, maintenance person, 20 hours a week? What are you looking for? Anybody have any thoughts? Because it's going to be separate, it's my understanding, you want to keep it separate from somebody cleaning the bathrooms and cleaning stuff. You want the cleaning separate from the maintenance person.
I don't particularly, because I think the person coming in to do, has a better scope of the building, you know what I'm saying,
But they don't necessarily want to clean the toilets.
Yeah.
It wants to fix a light bulb, just saying. You know what I'm saying, I just, there is, I will be honest with you, this roof is leaking. My floor was soaking wet this morning. My cabinets were soaking wet this morning. The conference, the welfare, Beth put 2 trash barrels under it, and it leaked on Thursday. But the whole ceiling up in her room, my room not so much, but this has been like the 3rd day I wondered why the floor was wet. But the cabinet was wet, and my pictures are all warped from that. Now, the roof is only 5 years old. But the gentleman that installed your roof is no longer in business. So
He also did the library, didn't he?
Yep. I'm gonna have to find somebody because I don't know how much do you want the floor and everything else.
Oh,
gets
yeah,
soggy and
yeah.
They'll put buckets out so my floor doesn't, and the roof's really awful looking. You already know what it looks like anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
And safety complex as well.
the ceiling in my room is awful. But I wondered why it was wet, and the
So we
whole
must have-
thing was wet.
Well, I guess we don't have wet insulation because there isn't any there to get wet.
So I'm just saying, I'm gonna have to find someone to go look at, we did have an awful lot of rain.
Right,
Yeah,
but still, it shouldn't
that's
leak
why
in.
we have
It still shouldn't leak,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, you know, I don't know where, I mean, I'm not climbing up there.
No, I don't blame you. You shouldn't be
But
up there.
I think we should do something because, you know, how much of the ceiling's gonna be down on your lap pretty soon?
Right.
How much more sogginess? I mean, if you go in the welfare office, not kidding you, it's this big and the hunks of paint that are piled down is just awful. Nobody's in there most of the time, but that's still not an excuse.
No.
I mean, we heard drip, Beth heard drip, 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 and then they stuck garbage cans under it. But the ceiling, there's big pieces of paint on the floor. So, just
All
telling
right,
you where.
call,
Is there any
Just-
way that this can go to the, I mean, I understand, but is it possibility because of the high winds and going to the insurance company maybe?
I mean, I can ask. I gotta get somebody to get up there.
well, that's just it. I mean, regardless of which way it goes, I think we gotta get somebody there now to look at it,
Maybe
evaluate it,
Somebody look at the job and how. the
see what it
job
is,
might have been done
see what's wrong with it, just,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's inexcusable. You can't have what's going on up there. It just can't happen. So, we gotta act. I totally understand what you're saying,
I
but
mean, with the exception
No,
of the
yeah, I'm
shingles
not,
blowing
right,
off.
I'm not saying just
Right.
hold up
It
on
shouldn't be
doing
leaking.
anything.
it shouldn't be leaking, right? But I
Yeah.
think we need to get somebody up there. If it's quick repairs, that's, one thing. But I mean, if you're saying, if we get 3 contractors in to say, roof's junk, roof's junk, roof's junk, well, now we're up.
It's not that old. I look back. We did
Right.
it
No, I know. But,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, then, we need to know about that now for 18.
I mean, I'd be happy to check with the insurance to see what the deal is. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I'd be happy to do that. Let's see what
Well,
we
And it might be in the right
Yeah.
timeline too for
Yeah,
insurance.
I mean, have somebody look at it, see what their thought is, if
Right.
Yeah.
it was because of workmanship or if it was,
Mhm.
we had a lot
It's
of
just
wind up
funny,
there.
it's, like when you come in my office, it's right between the window and the door to open my door. The whole floor was soaking wet this morning. And then the file cabinet, I have pictures there and the pictures are all warped because they got wet.
But I mean, it hasn't happened prior to this.
Not, well, it's been wet before and I just said, maybe she mopped the floor.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm thinking. But no, it's been leaking that long. I just thought it was something
Right,
else. 'Cause
right.
I didn't want to believe it was leaking, I guess.
right. But you guys haven't been putting trash cans out for,
Oh, that was in the welfare room, yeah.
yeah, but you guys haven't been putting them out for the last 2
No.
years.
no.
Okay.
Just in the last week.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe something blew up then, and who knows?
And then, I also just want to, assessing, we looked at those and I sent out emails to all of them because there's about 20 questions that we had additional information needed. So, gonna put that in a spreadsheet when I get it back. It went out today, that there's a lot of information I need to know. If it's included or not included, if it's not included, what's the price? So that you can have apples to apples. But the custodian, it just brought me back to the idea that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, it depends on, I guess we have to decide that before we put anything in a budget.
Right.
Whether we want to combine or separate, but we certainly want the person to have a ongoing role and not just be here to, I mean, we want the person to shovel the walks for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we already got a shoveler. He'll shovel that forever. Dave said he'd shovel it. I can't get him to do the maintenance, but he said he would shovel and he takes care of all the buildings with stand and he's here 2 or 3 times without me
Mhm.
asking.
Yeah,
Because I usually shovel.
That was
during
one
the
of my
day.
concerns, because you're right, I mean, I know you were doing the shoveling.
Right.
Doesn't really belong in your particular job description.
Clears my mind.
Mm.
I guess what I'll do is I'll bring it forward. You'll see what the cleaning is and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yep.
When we do ours.
Sounds good.
Okay? Thank you. That's all I had.
Public comment? Anyone?
Sharon Burdick, 382 Deering Center Road. A question, when is the highway department gonna be finished? Because I was under the impression they'd given a date of the end of October. They're still working over there.
Finish what?
The building.
The building?
The garage.
No, it should be, it's a November date now, but it's
Okay.
Fast
It was
approaching.
at the very, we talked about October, but
Yeah.
then we didn't get out so they could have it until the end of May.
And the other thing is that we were supposed to be getting an update every 2 weeks. I haven't seen any update on it. I haven't even seen an update at all.
He did come in once, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks.
He's been in twice, once and then,
Well,
yeah,
once since.
Yeah, he was in, yeah.
That you were at,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know if he's got updates, but it was supposed to be bi-weekly updates, and
Right.
I don't know if
We
that,
can-
he has that information. Be nice to kind of look through it. That's all I have.
While you're here, how about the, you had one contractor who, a couple of years ago, I guess it was, gave you a price on doing the underpinnings for,
Yeah, I was supposed to call him Saturday morning, and it slipped my mind. I went up because I said I'd meet him there at 3, and I waited for about 15 minutes Saturday afternoon, and he didn't show up. So I went straight back to the house and I called him, but he never answered his call, the phone. And I called today, and it just rang and rang and rang. Nobody picked up.
It might have no power.
Maybe that may be it. So I will. I'll try to get a hold of him tomorrow and see if he'll take a quick look at that. He said he thought it would probably be in the same ballpark as what he'd already given us.
and did you
And-
have a name in mind for somebody to contact about painting that roof and the, or not, on the buildings on each?
Gordon Brown buildings.
Well,
Got 2 of them in Lawrence.
Mark Reed was one, and then there's a fellow in New Boston, and I just found his phone number this afternoon, actually, so I'll call him and see if he's interested in coming up. And as far as the roof here goes leaking, I'm not surprised it's leaking, because I actually sat in the parking lot for a while and watched some of the stuff that was going on, so I'm not surprised at all. I don't know how busy Walker Roofing is right now. They may be up to their, over their head, but the other company that you might think about, Naomi, is the guys that actually came over and did the town hall roof, because they did a pretty decent job. They did a couple slip-ups, but they corrected it the day I was there. I said, you need to fix it, and they fixed it. So I don't remember the name. They were from Hopkinton, I think. Or Kentucky, one or the other.
I'm not remembering.
I think the problem we have with roofing is there are some big name roofers. But then when you go beyond that,
You don't want these,
they
you get these,
turn over.
Yeah.
You know, they move on, they move out of business. I don't mean that they're not honest to begin with, but they just move on. It's not as stable as, you know, you go with a Melanson or somebody, a big company, but then you pay the price.
yeah. Well, I mean, we can't complain on Walker Roofing, that's for sure.
No.
And
Yeah, we tried Therian Roofing.
Variant, that's what
Was
it
it
is.
there?
Yeah.
Manchester?
No,
Yeah.
it was Hopkinton and Kentucky that did that job, and I can't remember, but they had been in business a long time, because I spoke with the owner.
Yeah. And there are, you know, like Variant, been around forever, and, but, they're
And I don't-
likely to,
They're gonna be
they're
more
likely to be more, I don't know,
The ones that put the roof on up at Clinton Grove here back a 3 years ago, the actual work that they did appeared to be okay, but they used some cheap material. They didn't put the 1/2-inch water kicker on, and the drip edge was cheap, the cheap stuff. You know, which I wasn't aware they were up there doing it. I have to go up through, and it's all done. So. But,
We say
yeah.
they're more expensive, but if we don't have to do it twice, it's,
Yeah, I mean, I think the person that you had do this roof and did the roof over at the library, it's not a great job, believe me. You can tell by looking at stuff, so. All right, that's all I got.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Lori Davis. I'm very concerned that we've lost our animal control officer. She is very important to this town. People trust her. She's one of the people that allow us to trust our police department. The judgment in handling her and what has continued to be a debacle over there continues to make us question our Board of Selectmen and the Chief of Police. Your job is to make sure that we have a stable, trustworthy group to deal with. This woman has been in place for over 10 years, and everybody in this town trusts Jessie. Without question, with our animals, nobody's ever been afraid. If we had a problem, we could go to her and she would solve it, and she did it beautifully. Our animals are in jeopardy. They're part of our family. We do not trust you. We do not trust the police department. And for the record, this is all over town about what happened. And it is pitiful the way you've handled it, the way the police chief has. You handed a contract to a man with no strings. And you talked tonight about your purchasing policy. And yet this man can purchase up to $2,500 without clearance from you. You are not consistent, you are not respectful to the residents, and you have done a huge disservice to this town by allowing us to lose our animal control officer. You need to get her back. She was not highly paid, but she did a hell of a job. And you have put a lot of people's animals and trust in jeopardy. And shame on you for allowing it to happen.
Frank?
Frank Campana. I'd like to make a comment on last week when you set the tax rate. I didn't do it at the time because of time. You know, you guys want to get home, and me too. But when you look at the time sheet, the tax sheet, there's a line on there of call the overlay, and I don't expect an answer. I don't want an answer, but just to ask, see if you can answer yourselves. I'm sure there's at least one person there that knows. What is the overlay used for? It's $20,000 set aside.
Strictly for abatements.
No, I know what it is, but that's why I said I want, you know, we have a couple of new board members. I don't know if they know what it is. But my comment is the same as it was last week about the week before when the road agent mentioned the hazardous waste, that out of 5 selectmen, there wasn't one selectman that asked how many people, how far did the money go, did you have to get extra money from somewhere, and where did it come from? So along the same lines, nobody asked, out of 5 people, nobody asked anything about the dollar amount of the overlay, which is $20,000, and according to the finance administrator, it's only 2 cents, you know, on the tax rate. But I would have thought that somebody would have said, well, is that enough money? Is it not enough money? What did we spend? I mean, it's an account that that I'm taxed for, and nobody asked, and it's an important factor in setting the tax rate, because there's probably one person that may remember, you weren't on the board at the same time, but going back at that time, but going back roughly 15 years, 10 to 15 years, the board at that time, they were appropriating $250,000 for the overlay amount, and with an expense of $17,000 out of that. So how do you know that $20,000 is enough or not enough? There was no discussion. I'm concerned.
May I just say something about that, Frank?
Sure.
Because in the past, and I looked at that and I intentionally didn't say anything, because the 20,000 seemed like a very reasonable amount. In the past, there have been times when it came from the state with like a $50,000 amount in there. And what I did in response to that was to ask the assessing department, how much have we really spent up to this point? And then if it was, you know, add a small amount to that, because we're already talking October, and any future abatements that haven't been already paid are going to be minor. So, but when I looked at the 20,000, I thought that's a reasonable amount. I just let it go. Maybe it shouldn't have, but that was my thinking on that, because it seemed like it was really in the ballpark of what we expected.
And I can agree with that, Tom, totally, but there's still 4 other members that didn't ask the question. okay? And it wasn't even, and as you just admitted that it wasn't even brought up. But, you know, I guess if I was a selectman, say, well, let's see, the overlay, what is that? I know what it is, so is that enough, and what did we spend? And you're absolutely right. We finally gone to the assessing department and asked, and usually the only time you ask for more is in a reassessment year. So I'm concerned about not asking that simple question by at least 4 members. It's kind of in line also with the fee for bedding and furniture. I don't expect anybody to ask a question on it, certainly at this point, but when that fee was adopted, it was not supposed to be a moneymaker. That was the comment by at least one of the selectmen. We don't want to make money on it. Well, it's in the revenue. It's on the revenue side. So what am I to believe? Do we need that money? Do we need that fee? If it's not a moneymaker, then it shouldn't be revenue.
Well, yeah, but you charge people and then you also have to pay out the other side. So it's a revenue and an expenditure.
It shows up on the revenue sheet as a revenue going into. Where does it? No, well.
That's really the only.
Somebody can explain.
That's really the only way that it can be documented is as a revenue, because we can't just add it to the budget. So anything that comes in like that is, unless it's in the revolving fund that we have there for paying for things like getting rid of television sets and things, anything that comes in through recycling of cans or anything else, it all is listed as a revenue. And then it's it just is, as Jan says, it adds. We're not signaling it out and saying this is much we paid for to get rid of mattresses, because it all goes into the trash, which has been one of the points of contention, I understand. But there would be no other way to list it except as a revenue.
Well, then, I know at the time when that was discussed, it was listed as a revenue. It was said, yes, it's a revenue, not supposed to be a moneymaker. If it's a revenue, then it should should be used to deduct from the transfer station transportation of rubbish. It should be used towards that, and it isn't.
Well, it is an offset to it. That's
How do
what
I
we're
know?
trying to say.
How do you know it is?
Well,
I don't
the
know.
revenue gets applied.
Okay. So I'm concerned that for some of the simple things, again, like the overlay, you want to complicate the bedding, okay, and the hazardous waste, that if there's no response from the selectmen, is there going to be a response from selectmen on other dollar amounts that have a larger tax impact? If you can't do the simpler ones to ask questions, then I'm not too sure that you're just going to accept, like what was presented tonight, just accept it as it is. We'll see how that develops.
Frank, we accepted what she gave us, but that's the first time anybody looked at it.
No,
so I'm just saying.
I did, okay.
Yeah, I'm just
sorry.
saying that we prefaced it earlier, it's the first time anybody saw it, and if there's questions, it's not gonna be the last time you're gonna see it, and things may crop up. There's things that are placeholders that we haven't finished yet. So that's not a finished product by any means. So I'm just saying that, the reason it wasn't questioned was because the first time they've seen it, and now they're gonna take and decipher it.
Right, well, I misspoke, or I didn't explain myself enough. I didn't expect discussion on what was presented tonight.
Okay.
And I understand. I mean, because I will look at it a number of times, and I'll probably never understand it. Okay, giving me all kinds of time. So I was not keying in on that presentation tonight. I certainly understand. Okay, that's all I've got.
Thank you. Tim, did you have something tonight?
Yes.
I'd like to applaud the board on the keeping the purchasing the way it is. Thank you, Rick. for that. The DPW building, there's no backup heat. Do you know what kind of fluid will be used? I know you won't know, but just can you ask the question? Whether it's going to be antifreeze or water with no backup heat. And the other thing, the DPW garage, does anyone know what generator currently is there or going to be there? And is there another one forthcoming? Because if there is, wouldn't it be wise to lease a larger generator at this point so we don't buy into it if the suppression article doesn't pass this year or the next year or the following years?
You want an answer on that? Are you asking
Sure.
a question? Okay. That is, I wish I had a definitive answer for you on the generator, but I've been working on getting an answer here for the last several weeks. The intention is to put the larger generator in. Again, the board hasn't made a decision on this yet, but it appears that there would be money in the highway department budget to upgrade to begin with. In other words, the difference is what, around $30,000, Naomi?
I think it's a little less than that, but it's, that's a round number.
Yeah, so
I can't get a definitive answer
to go to the, whatever it is, 80 kilowatt or
80 kW.
rather than the 50, which is the one that was ordered without the suppression system. It's about $30,000. And if we can take that out of the present highway budget, then we can upgrade, and so it's there, ready to go. If the article passes, whether it passes this year or in the future, that's what you're suggesting, I believe.
Is to get the larger
Well, you're
one.
gonna have a 50 kW on your hand, and you're gonna have 80 kW also?
One would be, it would be one.
One purchase.
We'll have the one purchase of the larger generator so it can support the whole thing, including that. That's, again, we don't have definitive answers on that yet.
Well, would a lease option be presentable at this time? Just not knowing what the future might hold? Rather than get trapped into such an expensive
Yeah,
item.
I don't know, that hasn't been discussed, but I don't see why we would, if the money's there to buy the upgraded generator, I would say, why would we lease it? Without, because
If the money's there.
Yeah, it's part of the building, it's not like a vehicle.
Right, to expend, you're saying $30,000 extra in the future.
And take $30,000 off the warrant article. In other words, when we see the CIP presentation, there's X number of dollars for the fire suppression system. If we can upgrade the generator and take money out of the present budget to do it, then that article will go down by like $30,000. I wish I could be more specific with you, but I can't.
Well, when will that be nailed down, you think?
Better be pretty darn soon.
In the past, I thought we'd received money for the River Road, for the Clough entrance. I thought Dunbarton received money to keep their end open for the federal road, for the federal dam project.
I'd have to look, I don't,
This is probably back in like the Willie Foot era,
I was
so.
gonna say that was before I was here.
Yeah. The only money I'm aware of is that we get revenue because of our lost taxes on the area. And that's like 17,000 one year.
That was a while ago.
Hmm?
You're talking from the gate to River Road.
Yes.
Okay.
And Town Hall door,
There's a gate right there, right at like stone's throw from River Road to shut it down.
Right, but that's somebody's driveway, right?
No,
no,
no, that is the road to East Ware Village. But everything from the gate in is gonna be obviously the feds. So,
Okay.
I just wondered, could you reach out to the Corps of Army Engineers for that, and see if there's any funds available through them to
Could take a while, but it
work a
can,
shot.
can probably be looked at, but it's gonna take a
Available
while.
to what? I guess you lost me completely.
To maintain that edge from River Road to,
It's about 2 car lengths.
well, it's all stone and it's pretty washed out and there's,
Oh, what are you talking about, Rick? I'm talking about
Yeah.
River Road to
yeah,
Clough Park.
to Clough Park or
Yeah.
to East Ware Road.
To, no, not on East Weare Road,
Oh, so that's what you had me.
to Clough. River Road to Clough.
Plus State
I
Park.
believe,
Oh.
I believe
That's
Mr.
town.
Nichols in Dunbarton has a contract to maintain that road through the federal. He's in there working on it all the
Yeah.
time.
So you're not talking
You might wanna
about-
check with him.
You're not talking about plowing or anything, you're talking
No,
about
just
maintaining.
general maintenance and upkeep, and if they'd throw any dollars at it.
I know he's been in there hauling gravel and
And that's out of federal money, you think, John?
I don't know, he's in there in federal land, he's gotta be having something.
Yeah.
I don't stop and talk to him. But he's in Dunbarton, just before
Yep,
Dunbarton.
yeah, I know. All right, another item is town hall door, the gap on the left-hand side. Is that going to be fixed or shimmed up?
I don't have an answer for that tonight.
The hinges, you can buy shims for the hinges. It's a Don Joe product, D-O-N apostrophe Joe. The shims you can buy, you can put them on the hinge jam striker side or the door side. You loosen the screws up and you slide these shims up. Because the tongue on the exit device isn't going to hold the striker, it's just barely touching the striker. So if you get a vacuum in the building, if the wind blows up and there's an open window, if it vibrates, it's going to open the door and you're going to be open when no one's there. The job's out to bid. I think we talked about this before. Weren't we going to try to put some of these in a local paper, keep them online?
Are you talking about a specific job now?
Any type of job that we,
No, that's what we were just
wanna
saying
sub out.
tonight when we were looking at the purchasing policy, bringing up that they should be on the town website.
Isn't it 3 days in the paper? Doesn't it used to be 3 days?
One.
They put it- Just
One of daily circulation.
One newspaper of general circulation to be at least 10 days before the time of the bid opening.
You put it in once and you can't have it until 10 days later.
I think you use the Sunday paper for that, or
The Sunday paper is costly, but.
I've seen the other towns using like the Messenger or something, Henniker and surrounding towns.
If you can plan ahead of time to catch them, yes. That is the only one we've got left.
Can we give that a whirl, see what we get for people?
Yeah, what are we putting out?
I don't know, just something,
Oh.
whatever comes up in the
Well,
future.
they've used that messenger, we've used the messenger anytime we can, because it is less costly. And it comes out every Friday to the Weare area, several places.
just for my own benefit, because I don't know, do you use only the messenger then?
Well, because the law says you need to have one of daily circulation, but if we're doing it ahead of time, I mean, the only 2 you got left is, you don't have the Upside News anymore.
No, so you have
So you
really
have
only the
you
Union
have the
Leader is the only
Concord
one that's
Monitor and
wide
Union
enough
Leader.
for
Mhm.
circulation.
Right. And we've tried advertising in the Sunday paper and it doesn't generate any more interest than any other paper. Costs more to buy.
Usually.
Anything else?
The other thing was, if the roof is leaking, is there a chance that someone could sneak up in there and just try to trail where it's wet at this point?
Well, that's what I was thinking, at least having somebody go up there and figure out where the spots
Yeah.
are.
Or it goes
It
from
must
the
be
inside.
rain stained.
From the
by now.
inside and go up, exactly, because you'll see the staining on the inside plywood, I would think.
That's it.
Thank you. Craig, did you have anything?
Lori Davis, Finance Committee. I see from the handouts tonight that our legal expenses exceeded what was approved at budget by at least $28,000. Now, when we were at deliberative session this year, there was quite the furor about the fact that the budget had been reduced by $100,000 by one selectman and the rest of the town. And the statement at that time was everybody felt that we were cutting the town's throat and picking on the town. However, after looking at this and hearing that there's going to be money in the highway department for a generator, for something that was supposed to be included in the original bid, one tends to wonder how much padding we actually have hidden in this budget. I'd like to know where the $28,000 came from, the excess $28,000 to cover the legal expenses. Where'd we pull it from? As a department committee head, I have a right to ask that question.
Well, it'll be from whatever budgets have a surplus at the end of the year. With the legal, Naomi, correct me if I'm wrong, we've never, as we've gone along, drawn from that. We do ask people within their departments to, okay, if you're going to overspend, where are you going to do it? But legal is legal, and so we have to make sure that it balances out at the end with whatever surplus there are from other departments.
But
And there are
legal,
all kinds of various issues for this, you know, the whole thing with the expenditures. You know, there are so many unpredictables. Highway, the intensity of the winter is such an unpredictable from year to year. We have positions that sometimes aren't filled because we can't find candidates for them, whether it's police or whether it's sometimes highway. There'll be a few months that pass. So there are a variety of reasons why that it doesn't, why do we have that money available. As far as the legal, you know, we voted to leave it at the 62,000 last year, but things came up this year that we didn't know were going to come up, and you pay them. You know, what are you going to do?
on a committee that has to explain to the residents how we make our decisions, which is why we're looking for more money, because we want to make sure we give much clearer explanations to the residents this year on the budget. It's important for us to understand how money's being moved around and where it's being generated from, where are the expenses coming from. I know where these expenses are coming from. They're coming from the police side of the town. And again, it raises questions as to what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, and accountability. So I need, as finance chair, I'm going to be asking you every time I see discrepancies like this, where are you pulling it from? Because I need to be able to explain that to my committee when we start making recommendations.
We'll have a better idea as we reach the end of the fiscal year for us. But, you know, not all the legal, granted.
A large part of it is police.
But, you know, we have quite a bit of legal that goes through land use departments as well. And then we have our regular attorney, which we call on for, you know, law inspector, Mitchell Municipal, for a number of things through the course of the year where we need legal advice. Even as we look at the thing that came up tonight about the Lake Shore, we'll need legal advice on that. And I don't know whether we'll go to Laura or whether we'll go to Drescher for land use, but one or the other. So there are a variety, but you know, you're right, that is a lot of it. But a lot of it is still, believe it or not, we're still living with our past.
I realize that. We have a meeting coming up next Wednesday night, and CIP is going to be coming and talking to us. And some of these questions are going to come up then, and then as we go forward, these questions are going to continue to come up. So perhaps when we do department things, I should come up instead of during public comment, but I am going to be having questions on this that I'm going to need to be getting answers from, and I'm going to be looking to you.
What I normally do, correct me if I'm wrong, but when a department head presents their budget, and if they're a finance committee members here, I will say, are there any questions from the finance committee?
Okay.
And that's typically the way that we involve in the process, which we want to do. If I don't involve you in the process, I can't convince you of it.
Very, very true. And we have some new people this year, so it's important that they understand that we have an open dialogue with you. But I wanted you to be aware that already these questions are coming in.
Yeah, and I actually think the last couple of years, we've done well communicating between the board and the finance committee.
Last year was, we did really well, and then we had deliberative session.
Yeah.
We all do not want a repeat of last year's deliberative session.
No.
Thank you.
Are we good? Okay, moving on. Any other business or correspondence?
I got something on the other business, being getting it 2 more months for the fiscal year. Would it be prudent at this time that expenses other than absolute necessary heat and oil and whatnot be approved by Naomi for the next 2 months?
I'll freeze in the budget.
All departments?
We've typically done that depending on what our bottom line looks like. I don't know, what are your thoughts, Naomi, as far as?
Well, there's just, I think John and I had this conversation today. There's, some things that we talked about, some of the expenses, and had to do some research, and maybe before we get carried away and have the oh my god factor, that wouldn't another set of eyes. I mean, all it means is before you order, it's not just to run the expense by me, it's before you order, you have to make sure that you're not overexpending, where it's gonna come from, and then I look at it as
Yeah.
well.
And that's, I have no problem with it, because that's been kind of our
And it's,
common
I don't want it
practice.
to, I don't want it, as John said, I mean, I don't want it to feel like it's a penalty, but I just think another set of eyes in a lot of cases. You've done it before, I've watched over the budget for the last 8 weeks of another year, sometimes the last few weeks, because that's when you get down to the whole, how much do I have left? We don't know what winter's gonna do, when it's gonna start.
We're talking about anything other than the common expenses.
Yeah, your payroll, your lights, your
Heat
phone.
and electric, is you have to pay them, but, if they, well, geez, I'd like a new chair today. Just get a, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to have, maybe Naomi reach out with all the department heads tomorrow, and say, hey, this is what's gonna happen.
And could we have a printout too, maybe, from Beth
The
as
end
to
of
the
October.
results for the end of October for next Monday?
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
See if we got it.
no, you're gonna get, after this week, at the end of, you'll get payroll.
Right.
Payroll should actually post it, so you should, because this payroll is gonna be November, so.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, John?
No, that was it.
Jim?
Right up to.
You're going back into non-public to decide what you wanna do from the earlier one?
I think we should have
I
that
think we should.
discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So move to go into non-public session under RSA 91A32C.
Second.
Aye?
Aye.